Today we will start a new lesson, that is chapter number 8, Silk Road. The lesson is written by Nick Middleton. Now, before we start reading the story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been to the mountains? Have you ever seen land covered with white snow? White snow shining brightly under the sun, isn't it absolutely mesmerizing? Well, in this lesson, Nick Middleton takes us on a journey through the snowy mountains. Nick Middleton is a British physical geographer. That means he studies the geography of the earth, its natural environment, and how humans interact with these natural phenomena. He has experienced the life of people living in hostile conditions and has written books based on his experiences. This lesson is a part of Nick Middleton's book Silk Road. The story describes the narrator's journey to Mount Kailash. The narrator, along with his companions, embark on a journey to Mount Kailash. On the way, they come in contact with several adversities, yet they continue their journey. Throughout the journey, they see several animals, meet people, and not to forget, see the picturesque beauty of the mountains. So now, let's start reading the lesson. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning we said our goodbyes. Extended banks of cloud-like long French loaves glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose-tinted blush. Now that we are leaving Ravu, Lamu said she wanted to give me a farewell present. One evening, I had told her through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora, and she had said I ought to get some warmer clothes. Now, the first few lines introduce us to the beautiful morning in the hills. The moon has not set yet, but the sun has begun to rise. The surroundings has a pink glow. The narrator says his goodbyes to his local friends and moves away from the slopes of Ravu towards Mount Kailash. Lamu wanted to present the narrator with a farewell gift. Lamu is a very thoughtful girl because when she came to know that the narrator was journeying to Kailash, she advised him to take warmer clothes. She was a native of the place and must know better about the weather. Kora is a Tibetan word. It means revolution. It is actually equivalent to pilgrimage. So, the narrator was out on a pilgrimage. Now, let's move ahead. After ducking back into her tent, she emerged carrying one of the long-sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. Sitan sized me up as we clambered into his car. Yes, he declared. Drogba, sir. Ducking back is when you lower your head and go inside quickly and come out. So, Lamu quickly went inside her tent and brought a long-sleeved sheepskin coat. This coat is worn by all the men in the mountains. Sitan, who was the narrator's companion and who would be driving the narrator to Kailash, looked up the narrator and called him a Drogba. A Drogba is a native Tibetan nomad with the sheepskin coat on. The narrator was looking like a Drogba. Now, let's read some more. We took a shortcut to get off the Changtang. Setan knew a route that would take us southwest almost directly towards Mount Kailash. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes, he said. But no problem, sir, he assured us. If there is no snow, what was the likelihood of that? I asked, not knowing, sir, until we get there. So, in these lines, we see that Setan is an expert driver and he knows the local path very well. He knew a shortcut that would take the narrator and him to the southwest directly towards Mount Kailash. Taking this shortcut meant that they would have to cross several high mountain passes, but Setan assured the narrator that there won't be any problem if there was no snow on the way. The narrator then asked about the possibility of the land being covered in snow, to which Setan said that there was no surety until and unless they reached the place. Now, moving ahead, from the gently rolling hills of Ravu, the shortcut took us across vast open plains with nothing in them except a few gazelles that would look up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. Now, in these lines, here we see that our narrator with his companions got down the slopes of the hills and came into the open plains. These plains were huge and they had no vegetation. That's why these are called arid pastures. Arid means barren. Over there, they could only see a few gazelles. Gazelles are types of antelopes. These animals were nibbling onto whatever vegetation was there, and when they heard the narrator and his car coming towards them, they looked up and they were not amused at all, as their face showed their annoyance, and they immediately went running away into the void. Void means the open empty space. The animals went running further into it. Now, moving ahead, further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. Setan told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Kyang, he said, pointing towards a far-off pall of dust. Now, in these lines, after moving ahead from gazelles, the narrator met with the herd of wild ass. Here, we come to know about Setan's knowledge because he, before even seeing a single ass, had pointed towards a pall of dust which was very far away and had said Kyang, which means wild ass. Kyang is a Tibetan word and it means wild ass. Now, moving ahead, when we drew near, I could see the herd galloping en masse, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers on some predetermined course. Plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. In these lines, as the narrator reached closer to the wild asses, he could hear the sound of galloping of the animals as they were coming forth all together in a herd. the narrator saw them wheeling and turning. It was as if they were practicing a skill over and over again, all together over a predetermined course. The word maneuver means some movement which requires a lot of skill to perform. As a result, dust could be seen reaching up into the crisp and clean air. Now, let's read some more. As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, we passed a solitary droghbas tending their flocks. Sometimes men, sometimes women. These well-wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take evasive action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. In these lines, here we see that the narrator and his companions are coming in contact with the local nomads and animals. These people were all tending their animals, their flocks of sheep. Sometimes it was the men who took care of the animals. Sometimes it was women folk. They would sometimes pause and look up at and stare at the narrator's car. Sometimes they would wave. When the narrator's car came close to the animals, then the sheep would quickly veer away or move out of the way of the speeding vehicle. The word evasive means avoiding. The sheep tried to avoid the approaching vehicle. Moving ahead, we passed nomads' dark tents pitched in a splendid isolation, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan Mastiff, standing guard. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fix us in their sights. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun and nearly as fast. In these lines, on the journey, our narrator comes across the tents of the nomads. These tents were guarded by dogs. We know that dogs are used to guard our houses. Here, a huge Tibetan Mastiff were guarding the tents of the nomads. While they were passing the tents, the dogs looked up and fixed their gaze on the approaching car. If, in case, the car came too close to the tents, these dogs would immediately start chasing the car. It was as if a bullet had been shot from a gun, and the speed of the animals were also nearly the same. Moving ahead, these shaggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night, usually wore bright red collars and barked furiously with massive jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle, shooting straight into our paths, causing Satan to brake and swerve. Now, in these lines, here the narrator describes the huge black mastiff which were there to protect the nomad's tent. These dogs are called as monsters because they were huge and absolutely black in color. The narrator says that they were even darker than the darkest of the nights. They had bright red collars around their neck and they had massive jaws. These animals were absolutely fearless and would charge directly at the speeding vehicle, which made the driver to either pull the brakes suddenly or to change the direction suddenly. Moving ahead, The dog would make chase for 100 meters or so before easing off, having seen us off the property. It wasn't difficult to understand why ferocious Tibetan Mastiffs became popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. In these lines, the narrator says, as these mastiffs were absolutely fearless, they would chase the narrator's car for about 100 meters or so before stopping. The narrator easily understood that this ferocity was the reason, particularly these dogs, were sent to the imperial courts in China as a token of appreciation. Now, let us read on. By now, we could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. We entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly clogged with ice, brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. The trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley sides closed in. The turns became sharper and the rides bumpier. Sitan, now in the third gear, as we continued to climb. Up until now, the narrator and his companion were driving along the plains. Now, they can see the snowy mountains at the horizon. The narrator describes a river which was nearly frozen with white glittering ice covering the water flow. This river's bank and path of narrators meandered along next to each other. The meaning of the word meander is to take a winding course that was not straight anymore but winds as it moves along. Now, as the narrator started gaining height and the sides or the valleys became steeper, the car ride became much bumpier. That Sitan had to shift to the third gear while they were climbing up the slopes. Now, moving on, the track moved away from the icy river, laboring through steeper slopes that sported big rocks daubed with patches of bright orange lichen. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow clung on in the near permanent shade. I felt the pressure building up in my ears, held my nose, snorted, and cleared them. In the above lines, we see that the narrator is moving ahead. He saw huge rocks which had patches of orange lichen on it. The meaning of the word daub is to smear or pat with something soft, and lichen is a kind of complex mix of fungus and algae. There he saw chunks of snow here. Students, as we all know, with rising altitude, the air becomes thinner and exerts less pressure. So, the narrator could feel the pressure building up in his ears. He had to snort his nose to clear them. Dear students, now let's do some exercises. Match the following words in column A with their meanings in column B. So, the first word is gazelles. Yes, what is the meaning of the word? It's D. That is a small, slender antelope. The next word is pastors. Yes, what is the meaning of the word? Its meaning is E. Minister in charge of a Christian church. Next word is Paul. Yes? What is the meaning of the word? It's A. That is, to become less interesting. Next word is maneuvers. Yes? What is the meaning? It's B. A movement that needs care. Next word is wearing. Yes? What is the meaning? It's C. To change direction suddenly. Now, let's do another activity. Make the meaningful sentences with the help of given jumbled words. So, the first set of jumbled words are were, they, completely, fearless, are, of, vehicle, shooting, straight, are, into, path. Yes? Make the meaningful sentence. The sentence will be, they were completely fearless of our vehicle shooting straight into our path. The next set of jumbled words are by, now, could, we, snow, sea, mountains, capped, on, gathering, the, on, horizon. Yes? Form the sentence. The sentence will be, by now, we could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. Now, let's do another activity, that is MCQs. The first question is, what is Kora? The options are A. Yoga asana, B. Medication, C. Name of a small town, D. Meditation performed by Buddhist believers. Yes? What do you think, which is the correct answer? The correct answer is option D. That is, meditation performed by Buddhist believers. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, where was the protagonist heading towards in the beginning of the chapter? The options are A. Mount Kailash, B. Himalayas, C. Uttarakhand, D. Delhi. Yes? What do you think, which is the correct answer? The correct answer is option A. That is Mount Kailash. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, what was the sky looking like due to the sun rays spreading on the mountain tops? The options are A. Yellow blush, B. Rose tinted blush, C. Beautiful and fresh, D. Purplish. Yes? What do you think, which is the correct answer? The correct answer is option B. That is rose tinted blush. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, what did Lamo give to the protagonist as a farewell gift? The options are A. Long-sleeved sheepskin coat, B. Flowers, C. Leather coat, D. Shoes. Yes? What do you think, which is the correct answer? The correct answer is option A. That is long-sleeved sheepskin coat. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, who are Drogba's? The options are A. Hill tribe, B. Sheep, C. Local people, D. Cuisine. Yes? What do you think? Which is the correct answer? The correct answer is option A. That is Hill tribe. Students, now we have come to the end of this session. I hope you all have understood the lesson till now. We will continue the chapter in the next part. Till then, stay healthy and enjoy learning. Thank you.